Few things frighten the civilized world as much as environmental disasters like toxic spills and nuclear accidents. And now, concerned scientists are looking into the possibility that the United States, albeit inadvertently, might have unleashed an environmental disaster when it dumped huge amounts of the defoliant Agent Orange on Vietnam. The reason the US dumped millions and millions of gallons of Agent Orange on South Vietnam was to destroy thick jungle like this that provided cover for the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese army. The defoliant was 1,000 times stronger than weed killer used in the United States, but the American servicemen who sprayed it and even bathed in it didn't know that it also contained a deadly byproduct, dioxin. Dioxin is the most toxic man-made chemical of all, now known to cause cancers, low IQs in children, and at least one type of birth defect. But until now, no one has studied what happened in Vietnam, the site of the biggest dioxin contamination in history. A Canadian team of scientists called the Hatfield Group is trying to find out whether dioxin in Agent Orange was as bad for the people here as it was for the trees. Tom Bovin heads the team.
There very well could be increased incidences of birth defects or cancers or other problems as a result of the Agent Orange spraying. What those exact statistics are, whether it's 10 times or 2 times or 100 times, I don't know. I mean, I think we need more data. Let's go.
And that's exactly what Bovin and his Vietnamese partners will be fishing for today, at the bottom of the food chain.
We're going to collect some fish samples from these 2 ponds. Actually, they look like a couple of old bomb craters. Okay, that's the biggest grass carp we ever got.
According to the Hatfield team, dioxin can be found in the fish, especially around a former US military base. Dioxin in these ducks is 3 times the level that would close commercial food production in the West.
Basically, it was use of chemicals in warfare. So chemical warfare is a no-no these days. And no, nobody could ever do that type of thing again, that's for sure.
But back then, millions of American servicemen were exposed. They too were sprayed by Agent Orange. One of them was a 19-year-old draftee from Michigan named Larry Lay.
It got all over you. It got all over everything. And that's when and then a few hours later, everything it landed on was green. Within a few hours, it was dead and brown laying on the ground.
And when you saw the immediate effect it had on the foliage, did you ever wonder what it did to you?
Not at that time. Everybody knew the government wouldn't do nothing to harm us, right? Never even crossed our minds.
Until?
Until I got home and first child ended up being messed up real bad with Spina Bifida.
For 25 years, Larry petitioned the Veterans Administration to recognize that Stacy's Spina Bifida was caused by his exposure to Agent Orange. And for 25 years, they said no. Until 2 years ago, when studies showed that this birth defect may be linked to dioxin. Stacy receives $1,200 a month, and veterans exposed to Agent Orange can now be compensated for 9 other illnesses. The Vietnamese claim a whole host of illnesses and defects can be traced to Agent Orange spraying, especially along the Ho Chi Minh Trail. That famous wartime supply route now leads directly to dioxin victims, according to Dr. Tran Man Hung.
Even American doctors recognize that this is one of the diseases that is related to dioxin.
Mr. Ho Tin Phic was sprayed by Agent Orange during the war. He now has cancer, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Mr. Quinn Dem is dying of liver cancer, which has also been linked to dioxin. It's no secret to those taking care of him, they've already prepared his coffin. But the cruelest fate, according to Dr. Hung, awaits the children who've been born with learning disabilities and birth defects.
This girl is 6 years old, but she still cannot speak. She can't even sit up by herself. Someone always has to hold her. Areas that were sprayed by Agent Orange have 10 to 20 times more birth defects than normal. But to finish the research, we need help from abroad. Vietnam can't do it alone.
66.
And now, for the first time ever, Western scientists will get to test a critical piece of the dioxin puzzle.
We've tested the soils in this area. We found dioxins in it. We've tested some of the food items. We found dioxins in those food items. So the next logical step is to also test the human population.
And so, hundreds of blood samples will be collected and sent to Canada for analysis, along with dozens of vials of mother's milk, to see whether dioxin is being passed to the children. Every family will also be examined by Vietnamese and Canadian doctors to see just how many birth defects and illnesses there are in this valley. A case of spina bifida, the same birth defect that Larry Lay's daughter suffers from back in Michigan, immediately attracts the attention of another member of the Canadian team, Dr. Ralph Brands.
Generally, the buildup of fluid will be compressing her brains. She's obviously not walking, so we could expect developmental delays, mental retardation.
It's too late to help her baby, but Mrs. Ho can still help the researchers by giving her own blood and her milk.
We're really just trying to help the Vietnamese to start collecting some data on these people. People just don't have medical records. There's no computers here, so we're just trying to help put the roots down so that others after us can come in and hopefully help answer some of these big questions.
The answers from the lab show that in this community, dioxin, in abnormally high levels, is present in both mother's milk and human blood. But the big question remains, did dioxin cause this community's birth defects? This is the main maternity hospital in Saigon, or Ho Chi Minh City, and it has one of the many centers for children born with birth defects. But although many of their families come from villages that were sprayed with Agent Orange, no one can say with any certainty that the chemical caused their problems. But the Vietnamese who take care of these children believe that dioxin caused many of these defects. The chief neonatologist here is Dr. Le Diem Hung. So you think these kids' problems are from Agent Orange?
I think 1, 2, 3, 4 who was born in the spray area.
And he has what? He has spina bifida and leg problems?
Yes, leg problem too. Yeah, Spina Bifida and leg. Yeah.
And do you think that's caused by Agent Orange?
Yes. Yeah.
But Dr. Arnold Schechter, who's written the definitive text on what dioxin can do to people, is not so sure, even though he's pushed for America to finally investigate this controversial issue.
If there's health damage, then there should be compensation, and there should be prevention measures, there should be cleanup to be discussed. It's a difficult area. It's not a pure science. It's not just like treating strep throat.
When we look at these children, it's obviously really tragic. I mean, how much of this can you really attribute to dioxin?
We don't know with the children at this hospital. That would take health studies. For any individual patient, you would have to do a thorough workup, and we need much more research.
Dr. Schechter has been doing research with Dr. Lee Cao Dai of Vietnam's Red Cross. They're collecting samples at a place called Bin Hoa, close to what used to be the main U.S. air base for Agent Orange missions. They believe dioxin is leaking into a lake where people fish.
We're going to see the man who had the very highest level of dioxin, which we believe is from Agent Orange.
Mm-hmm. So he's eating contaminated fish?
Yes. And you believe the runoff is from the Bin Hoa Air Base?
Yes.
Hello, how are you?
Mr. Nguyen, who fought alongside the Americans, has been too sick to work for the past 10 years. Dr. Schechter has come to tell him the amount of dioxin in his blood is more than 40 times the normal level.
And does everyone eat the same fish? Everyone. You can squeeze my hand if you like.
To confirm his suspicions, Dr. Schechter tests Nguyen's wife as well and is astonished to find that her blood contains 70 times more dioxin than is normal, the highest anyone's tested since the war.
We were surprised. I had expected that the rates would be coming down since the spraying ended. The results are that we're finding much higher level of dioxin from Agent Orange in the blood of Vietnamese than we found for a long time.
Now, 25 years after the war has ended, it's America's Vietnam veterans who are pushing the hardest for the United States to wage one last battle in Vietnam, the battle for answers.
We've got 300 here.
George Claxton handles Larry Lay's case and hundreds of others for the Vietnam Veterans of America.
People don't want to hear about Agent Orange. A lot of them don't. They don't want to hear about the Vietnam War either. It's something they want to forget about. But the people who are sick, the people that are dying, the children that have birth defects, they can't forget.
Do you think the U.S. government should spend money trying to study the situation in Vietnam, trying to clear it up?
If they don't study it in Vietnam and find the answers there as to why it poisons you and how to get rid of that poison, where are they going to study it? It's the best laboratory in the world. No, there are people dying all over the world from dioxin. You have to find the answers, and you go to the best place you can, and that's Vietnam.